Why are there so many citizens of the New Republic that are so supportive of the Empire? Why has the grips of the Empire not let go just yet? Spoilers lie ahead for the first 2 episodes of Ahsoka. For decades, the Empire's reign of terror oppressed and silenced the galaxy at large. They created intensely unfair labor requirements, occupied otherwise peaceful planets, and enforced policies that the common populace had no say in. They legalized slavery, created a superweapon that was designed to oppress a galaxy at large and could destroy planets in an instant. They were domineering and seemingly all-powerful. So then this brings up the question, if the Empire was truly so bad and so egregious, then why are so many people still loyal to it even 10 years after its collapse? What about the Empire inspired such loyalty even among the members of the New Republic? Surely everyone who supports the Empire isn't nearly as bad as Palpatine himself. Well, today, welcome back to our archives, Acolytes of the Force, and let's dive into the question and explore the complicated idea of why some might find the Empire to be highly appealing. So much so that without Sidious, without Vader, many citizens are still loyal to it. What the Empire's problem was that it was disproportionately harmful to more people, but that doesn't mean that there weren't some that prospered during the Empire. The first thing the Galactic Empire did when it rose to power was conscript an army of the populace in order to begin preparations for war. This created thousands of jobs, and we learn in the Bad Batch that most stormtroopers are loyal to the Empire simply because they pay their wages. They also gave them food and provided housing in a time when war had ravaged the galaxy at large. And in a galaxy ravaged by war, these were more than simple commodities. They offered young men and women the opportunity to tour the galaxy and serve their emperor. In addition to all of this, the Empire also had to outsource much of its manufacturing, creating even more jobs for people on distant worlds that did not have the opportunity yet. This brings us directly to the shipyard that we see in the first 2 episodes of Ahsoka, where we meet a group of dormant Imperials, loyal to Morgan Elsbeth and Grand Admiral Thrawn by extension. The facility was likely at the height of their productivity, and more importantly, their profits, as Palpatine's warmongering needed an arsenal capable of keeping up with his vision, a vision of complete galaxy-wide domination. In addition to this, the Empire took huge leaps to use propaganda, which played a major role in shifting public perception of not just the Empire, but the former government in the Republic and the Jedi as well. And some of this propaganda was not entirely without truth. The Senate had long since become ineffective, and the Jedi were no longer the peaceful guardians of justice that they had once been. They were truly an extension of the Republic's will, and the Republic's will did not always benefit its citizens. What is true is that the Senate and large parts of the Republic itself were corrupt. Individuals like Dooku realized this corruption, and even as an extension of this, Qui-Gon Jinn and later Anakin Skywalker. The dogmatic ways of the Jedi and their principles and the stifled politics led to many suffering, especially under the Clone Wars. Entire worlds were ravaged, destroyed by the Republics and Separatists alike, caught in the crossfire. Millions upon millions of lives were lost during the Clone War. Many of them were preventable. But this all goes to the point that the Clone Wars worked effectively in Palpatine's vision. It was the greatest hit job the galaxy had ever seen, and the reputation and perception of the Republic and the Jedi were extremely damaged by the end of the war. So much so that the average citizen was pleading to end this corruption. And then a man arose with that exact plan and that promise. Palpatine was hailed as a hero, the greatest hero that the galaxy had ever seen. He would unite the galaxy once again, eradicate the corrupt order that served the Republic, and begin anew. The greatest thing that Palpatine did to destroy the Jedi and the Republic was to weaponize the average citizen. The civilian underworld hated the Jedi, and they blamed them for the war, including the consequences that everyday citizens were left to endure. The Empire offered to change this by finally eradicating the Jedi, who had been framed as traitors. This was the first step, but it was far from the last. They diminished the power that the corrupt Senate had in favor of a more streamlined system of progress. But next, Palpatine targeted the pockets of the average citizen. The Empire absolved the Republic of any war debt by alleging that it was a separate entity, which of course it was, and this allowed the resources to go immediately into its reconstruction, the reconstruction of the galaxy itself, rebuilding what the Republic had torn down. From the perspective of the average citizen, Palpatine had ended the war, eradicated all the debt that had accrued, created millions of jobs galaxy-wide, and was giving those jobs back to the average person. The truths of what Palpatine was really up to, his blatant racism, xenophobia, and practice of the dark side, all of his secrets were kept quiet from the general population. And it wasn't until many years later that many of these issues came to the attention of the public at large. Palpatine had always been a master of information. A common misconception about the rebellion, though, is where exactly it was formed. In fact, the rebellion was formed by those who were close to Palpatine and knew just how vile he and his empire really were. But there is also a truth with Imperial sympathizers. They wholeheartedly believed the propaganda regarding how the Jedi tried to execute the Chancellor. And in the end, when Palpatine was finally killed, it was at the hand of a Jedi. The Jedi were criminalized, hunted to ground, and most importantly, feared by the people of the Empire. And in the end, to hear that it was a Jedi who was responsible for the assassination of their leader would have been harrowing. Countless still believe that the Jedi betrayed the Republic and attempted to overthrow the Chancellor unjustly, and they still side with the Empire in the end. Palpatine, however, like dictators both real and fictional before him, built their empires on the strategic usage of fear. This does not necessarily mean he made people fear retribution from the Empire itself, but it meant that he used external forces in order to justify their treatment of individuals. If he could convince the galaxy that he was the true protector of the threats that he created, the Jedi and the Rebellion, then he could get away with more in the name of security. In the Clone Wars, he created the process by a fear of the Jedi Order, a latent distrust that was embedded into the citizens of the Republic, and he used this fear to justify his actions. Because of this fear of the Jedi, they allowed Palpatine to take emergency powers and instate himself as Emperor in the first place. They believed that the Jedi had tried to assassinate him, and because they had lost favor with the galaxy, they believed him and believed it was only a matter of time. He did this with the Jedi, later with the Wookiees. He did this with any species that he disliked or weren't beneficial to his agenda. He created fear and distrust among the galaxy itself. In many parts of the galaxy, Palpatine was a trustworthy figure, and the Jedi were a plague that he tried to eradicate. A plague that eventually caught up with him. And now, we reach the period of Ahsoka. While citizens of the New Republic weren't entirely aware that the Empire would grow into a tyrannical, fascist dictatorship, they did know that worlds were no longer being ravaged by endless waves of war and strife. Some of them were now wealthier than ever, happier than ever, and at peace. When the Empire fell, there were many that were liberated, but there were also others who lost their privileges and amenities that they had become comfortable with. Palpatine had made many of the Inner Rim worlds rich, prosperous, and all of them, because of this, had bought into all the propaganda that he offered them. And because of this, they are loyal to any form that the Empire introduces itself as. And in the era of Ahsoka, and in the New Republic, that is the individual known as Grand Admiral Thrawn, the final hero and remnant of the Empire, the last Grand Admiral. But anyway, my friends and acolytes, what do you think of this view on the Empire? And does this help explain away why some citizens are still loyal to its rule? Have your insights changed with this point of view? As always, my friends and acolytes, thank you so much for visiting our archives, and it would mean the world if you would subscribe to our order. And as always, may the Force be with you.